Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the X Podcast episode 5. It's crazy. And today, if you're watching and not just listening, you'll notice today's a little bit different. I am filling in for Kevin as the host today. I get to hang out with a couple of my favorite people in the world that I'll introduce you to in just a moment. But hey, first off, wherever you are listening from, watching from, whatever platform you may be viewing from, thanks so much for hanging out with us. It's been fun to build this family, and as always, we would love your feedback. So like, rate, review, 5 stars, obviously, and send us an email. We would love to know what you're learning, what you're hating. We would love ideas for topics. So podcast@thex.church. That's podcast@thex.church. Send us an email. And 2 quick fun stories from just this week. I had lunch with somebody on Monday that told me that based on one of these episodes, it actually spurred them on to go get a counselor.
Wow.
And take steps in their life, which was so cool.
That's
and then
good.
Yesterday, I want to give a shout out to Jeff Burrows, an awesome guy in our community. And I just asked him at the end of lunch, I said, "What are you reading right now?" And he showed me his phone, and it was the Audible version of The Road Back to You, Enneagram. I was like, "You watch the podcast?" He goes, "Yeah." And so
that's cool.
It's just so fun to bump into people all over that you have no idea. And they're like, "I'm watching, I'm learning, I'm loving." And so send us an email and rate, review, subscribe, share it with a friend. Use it as a conversation starter. But today is a special day. We're going to dive into creativity, the creative process. And I'm so excited about today. This is Tucker that is with us, and he is an incredible friend, and we have Trae Castles. And full disclosure, we've said this before, but most of us, I think all of us on this podcast, follow Jesus and work at a church. So that is the context that we're coming from today. But today we want to dive into this topic of creativity. And what does that look like for everyone? Because we believe everyone is creative, whether you consider yourself creative or not. It's not just can you draw a pretty picture, but I believe, and I cannot draw a pretty picture. And I'm excited to learn from you guys today because I have some things in my life that I need something to block or destroy the mental blocks in my mind when it comes to some creative things in my life. So thought it'd be fun to kick it off by getting to know you guys. For those that don't know you, I want you to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are as a person, and then your weekly function and creativity.
Yeah. So, like Russ said, I'm Trae, and really, I mean, my role is a dream because I get to, as a job, as a way to earn income and provide for my family. I get to be creative, and that's rare. I think growing up in school, like thinking, okay, am I ever going to be able to do music a lot or do photography or do art a lot? And so, but my role really is to really just take the message of what we get to do here as a church and figure out how we can use art and creativity and music to show that to people and to bring hope. So cool. Because I think we have a message, whether you're a Jesus follower or not, we have a message that I think it really brings hope to people. And so I get to work with an incredible team of creatives, and we just get to make a lot of really fun stuff. And it's been a dream to get to do that. So
I love it, Tucker. Tucker, you have a mostly drunken Starbucks cup. What is your Starbucks of choice? Just in case anybody's wondering.
So I used to work at Starbucks for like 6 years, so I know the secrets of
what is it?
It's good. So this is a venti iced coffee with 1 pump of mocha. I sound so bougie. 1 pump of peppermint and almond milk.
That sounds
it's
disgusting.
good.
Okay, that's good. Okay. All right, Tucker, tell us about you as a person, and what's your weekly role, your monthly roles in creativity here?
My name is Tucker. I am 22. My name is Tucker, and I get to do all the fun stuff on the creative team. So I get to make all the social content, so anything you see on like Facebook and Instagram, and I get to head the worship at our church. So all the cool stuff.
All the cool stuff. So, whatever your background is at church, one of the things that's really unique for us as a church, not every church has a creative team.
Yeah.
We actually have a pretty large creative team that services a lot of things, from graphics to design to worship to video. Quickly, what does that look like? What does that sphere of working in a creative team look like? And just how does that play out?
I think a couple of things. I think the way that we as a society and as culture, right, rely on media and graphics and video to for every aspect of our life. I think being a part of a job where your role is to add what some would say add to the noise. Mm-hmm. It's a big challenge. Mm-hmm. It's a big challenge to say, how do we get the message that we so believe in and cut through the clutter. But Russ, you mentioned kind of the different roles on our team. I mean, we really do. We have a team of just artists on our team who are all very different, who are all very multifaceted in the art that they love, the art that inspires them, but then also in their specific jobs, what they're actually tasked to do in a job. People who just have very specific gifts, but then also have multiple gifts in that. So from someone who, Brandon's role is a motion graphics designer, but right now he's doing all of our lighting design. And that's an art. And so I think from someone who Eric does graphics, but what he plays music in the band every weekend. Both of those are art. They're very different. They're very different parts. But so I think being a part of a there's some really positives to getting to do art and be creative in your job. There's some boxes and structures that I think if you've never had a job where you get to be creative in your job, I think it's sometimes a little surprising. Once you're in, and you're like, oh wait, I've got to be creative.
I have to produce.
I have to. Like I don't feel inspired. But I have to. And so I think, and that's something that my role is as I get to lead this team is, I really see it as my role to pull out what I know that they can do, whether they feel like it or not. And
one thing I think is amazing, the day and age we live in, is that for a while creativity in the church were not friends. This is more of a church conversation, but I mean, you have the Renaissance, you have these different periods of time where that's embraced. But for a while, and again, as a follower of Jesus, I think the most creative artist of all time is the creator of everything, who breathed everything that we've ever experienced, from the galaxies to everything in the seas to mankind to every species. There's no one more creative than him. And for us who are made in his image, we think that should be the natural result, is that we get to create. And it looks different for everybody. But for a while, it was almost outdated, was almost considered spiritual. And so I was curious, like how, kind of like he said, it's a dream. Like Tucker, for you to be able to say, because you've been on staff for how long?
6 months.
6 months. For you, what does that look like? What are the challenges and fun moments of having an outlet to put all of your gifting and all of your creativity into something that matters?
I think what you're saying about creativity and the church didn't get along, it's so interesting to me, because I feel like the church should be leading how creative we are. We are the ones, out of all of the artists in the world, all the people that are putting out music and making graphics and doing all this stuff, like we are the ones that walk closely to the creator. And so I think that for me, like when my relationship with God is awesome and I'm walking super closely with him, it's like I'm able to create way better than if I'm like distant from him. And so getting to do that for a living is a dream, because it's accountability. It's like I have to walk closely to God and learn his character so that I can create content that, reflects that. But it's just so fun because I get to do crazy things and dream big, and there's no limitations sometimes.
I love that. And hey, if you're watching right now live on Facebook, and whether maybe your profession's not a creative, or maybe you're in design, drop us some questions, because I think there's a conversation we're going to come back to too. But I think this is an interesting thing. I would love to hear your take on what is the difference between creativity and art. And it was interesting. I was listening a couple years ago to a TED Talk, and they were talking about you can tell the abundance of something by how much language you have for it. And they said, in some cultures, they only have one word for snow, or they have no words for snow. But in colder climates, you have snow, sleet, hail, frost. You have all these things. And some cultures only have one word for creativity. But one of the things that's encouraging to me is we are in a time and space and in a movement where there's creativity, there's innovation, there's design, there's artistry, there's ideation. And so let's get into what are some of the differences of those, especially if somebody's not in a career or a space where they're drawing or what would technically be considered like art. What's the difference?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, creativity and art go hand in hand. Right. When you think, if someone is a self-proclaimed artist, it's like I'm an artist. Okay. Well, I think all of us would think, okay, well, they're being creative. They're doing something. But I think also when you think artist, you think I do some form of go back to elementary school in your art classes.
Right.
You did painting, you did drawing, you did music, you did sculpture. You did all of these things that you're creating pieces of art. You're learning what it means to follow the rules of art, so then you can break them and be better at art. And I think the big difference in maybe someone who would say, "I'm not creative," or let me back up. Someone who would say, "I'm not an artist." I think what we believe that we're created in the image of God, and our God is one of he is like the most detailed and spectacular creator of all time. And so if we're created in the image of a creator, then there's a part of us who has a creativity within us, whether you do what we would consider art or not. You can be we've talked about this. You could be an accountant, and you're gonna have to be creative with the gifts that God has given you to think about numbers and math in a way that other people can't.
Yeah.
And if you're a dad, I have 3 kids, and what has worked with discipline for one of them won't work for the other, or teaching one of them won't work for the other. And so I have to be creative and think about how can I take maybe the image of the great creator and be creative with what he's given me to be dad to my sons.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people sell themselves short of I could never do that. I'm not creative. I'm not an artist. Well,
and the way you see yourself is going to determine how you walk that out.
Oh yeah, the way you see yourself, the way you see the way you view the world is going to determine how you operate within your creativity. The way that the stuff that you go through. The struggles and the mountains and the valleys, like that's going to affect your creativity, and I think there's so many ways that you can kind of branch off of, I'm not a creative. Well, yes, you are. You're a creative that maybe doesn't do what we would consider art, but you're creative.
Yeah.
And then the other side is, okay, I am a creative because I do what we would consider art. Yeah. And then I think you just branch off in a lot of ways. I'll let you hop. Do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, it's crazy how what you're walking through in life and what's happening affects how you express your creativity. Like for me in 2015, I walked through a really dark season when my brother passed away. And it was like through that, God opened up new ways for me to express how I was feeling. And that is kind of what got me through it. And that's what brought me closer to him through all of that. And so it's like, sometimes I'll go through big phases where I'm like, I just want to write all these songs and all these things. And then there's other times where I'm like, I don't want to write any songs at all. I just want to draw, or I just want to write. And I think that God just will pull you through different seasons of different phases of creativity. I think that creativity is almost like thinking on your feet of okay, this is how I expressed this last time, but that's not always going to be, where you're at.
No, that's so good. I heard 2 things in what you just said. Number one, that in the tough seasons of life, it can force creativity. And number 2, correct me if I'm wrong, but that actually you having an outlet to express creatively what you're going through is healing. So What would be an encouragement maybe for someone, and we'll get kind of to the artistic side in a moment, but to someone that is maybe for the first time hearing you say, okay, I'm an accountant, I'm a mom, but wow, I do have this innate creativity inside me because of the way I was designed. How important is creativity? I think I almost feel like some people just look at it as that's a cute little nice fun luxury, but how important is it just to see the creativity in you, and then how do you fuel that? How do you grow that?
I think how important is creativity? I think to answer that question, I think in being creative is telling a story. Being creative is walking out and living a story. And I think if we tell ourselves we're not creative, I think that's a really first step for many into my life isn't worth much because I can't be creative, or I think people, whether you're creative or not, you can not be able to sing worth anything, but some of those people love music. They love it. They're inspired by it. And so I think if that person who maybe would write themselves off and say, I could never do that, but they love music, I think that could be a step into living a life that is a lie, because I think if you tell yourself something, you're gonna start living it. So if you tell yourself you're not creative, then I think you're gonna settle for mediocrity. You're gonna settle for I can't do that, or I can't be, or I can't think like that. Well, yes, you can, because God's wired you like that. He's created you like that.
I think it's just try it. Just try something. Some of the most talented songwriters that we sing all of their songs, on the radio, can't sing at all. And it's just go for it. If you feel this desire, if you feel this, I just want to express myself through writing, get a notebook out and just start doing it. And, it might be horrible at first, and that's okay. We produce things that we hate all the time, and you just throw it away. But it's just just try it. I think that's the only way you get better at something, and that's the only way if that's something that's going to bring healing, and if that's something that, you want to start pursuing. If you don't try it, then you'll never know.
I love that. I love the thought, and I think we could all think of examples of people that in the darkest moments of their life, them having an outlet to express their soul. Because that's really, to me, one of the things about art that's so beautiful is it's an extension of who you are. It's an extension of your soul. I feel that way. I can't draw pretty pictures, but when I'm communicating, I feel like I'm putting my soul out there. And not only healing, but I feel like the times when I feel most alive, and I think for everybody, whatever expression it is, the times I feel most alive are when I'm operating in a creative expression of who I am. That serves people. And it's not just for myself, but serves people. And I'm just curious on the artistic side. First off, when did you notice, maybe early in childhood, a bent towards artistry, creativity?
I pretty much was singing since I could walk.
So let's just, in case, I know we said this earlier, but singer, musician, graphic designer.
Yes.
Talented,
just so Tucker Johnson.
Mute his mic.
My favorite thing in the world is we'll walk into a room and we'll say, Tucker, can you do this? He goes, well, yes, because I'm the best in the world at that. And
I don't actually believe that. Well, I do, but no. I was singing ever since I was little. I remember my parents tell this story about we were at this church Christmas program in 2003. So you guys were what, 15? I was 5. How old were you in 2003?
17 or 18.
Yeah.
Dang. Well, I was 5.
Man, I feel so old.
I know. Man. I don't really make those jokes a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Let's never make them again.
Anyway, so I was 5, and they had asked me to sing Let It Snow at this Christmas program. And my mom said the way I grabbed that mic, and I was just strutting it on the stage oh, the weather outside. She was I just knew you were going to be singing. You were going to be an artist when you grew up.
You want to sing it now?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I can't grab the mic and walk around, or else I would.
You two actually recently did a few songs on this platform. that were amazing.
We
What were
do
some
every
of those?
Sunday.
Well, okay, but touche. Yes, worship. But you led a few other popular songs
During the
currently.
message.
Yeah, during the
Oh,
message.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
we had a lot of feedback. A lot of people wanting
Yeah.
an encore. Trae, when did you notice? I feel like all your kids are creative too.
Oh,
They are.
They are.
They're cool.
And they're all very different. That's
Yeah.
my 10-year-old is very creative, but he is a
And
engineer.
But before you answer it, here's one thing.
Yeah.
We can get into some of this in a few minutes about maybe the stereotypes and challenges of artist types.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you blow away the stereotypes of what some people may unfairly put on creatives. Because when you get to know, like, I think when I first met you, I was like, he's just so cool. Like, you
Yeah.
guys, you aren't just two of the most creative people. I mean, two of the coolest people I know, and dress cool, and you're just so creative, and you can play like every instrument, and you just. But when you get to know you, you're like, some artists, people have a stereotype that they are not organized, or they fly by the seat of their pants, or they can be flaky. None of those are true. I'm just saying everybody has those. But you are like one of the most detailed, organized, structured, disciplined people I know, and it's really interesting. And so we'll get into that in a few minutes. But yeah, when did you first notice that you had that bent? And
I mean, I think I started music really early on. My house was not a house that there was a lot of singing happening by my parents. My mom would sing to me in the car, and she would, if she were up here right now, she would say that she's the reason why I do music. It's because she would sing, because I would
What'd she sing?
I would like 2 or 3 different songs, and that's
Yeah.
about it. Jesus Loves Me. But I think, I started taking music lessons when I was 6. And so I think from there it was, it's always just been a part of like what I love. But then junior high school did junior high did sports, and so then there was that weird kind of mix, like, am I a musician? Am I an athlete? And then, or am
what'd you play?
I played football and baseball, and
Man,
but
you're just a jock.
well, not anymore.
Same.
I
But
played football too.
Let's talk about sports.
but I think the reason I mention that is because I think there is this view that people have on, I can't be creative
Yeah.
unless I'm this type of person.
Right. Yeah. That's good.
And that can be further. That's not. It can be further from the truth, because
Yeah.
I think we are all creative. Let's
Yeah.
go back to that. We are all creative, and
Yeah.
it's and we get the opportunity to step into it in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think I think for me, my creativity has a lot to do with my calling to actually work and be in ministry. I think I would always have done music, whether I worked in a church or not. I would always done something creative. But I think it, when you're able to align, and anybody can do this. You can do this not in the church. When you're able to align a purpose for why you want to be creative, I think that
That's
gives
good.
you more freedom
Yeah.
to be creative. Does
Right,
that make sense?
yeah.
And so, like, my purpose and my why was to be able to share the hope that Jesus gave me.
Yeah.
And so, for you, for somebody listening, somebody watching, it could be, your purpose is, I'm going to be creative, and let's go back to the accountant job. I'm going to be creative in my accounting job, because I know that God has called me to do things the right way, and I want to help this company do things the right way, because that's how God has wired me. And so that's how you can be creative. So I think I kind of took a tangent there, but I think
No, that's good.
for me it's so tightly ingrained with my calling and who I am, and I would say that is the same no matter whether no matter if you do art
Yeah.
or you do numbers. So
And I love how you tapped into purpose too, because I think I think where creativity just goes through the roof is when the purpose is something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
When it's one thing to try to just generate creativity and get really inspired so that I can make a big deal out of me. But when you have to when you're what's leading and inspiring you is to actually impact humanity, that's when I think passion itself is going to take your creativity to the next level. So what do you do? I'm just curious, what are the structures you have in place to help facilitate? What are the rhythms? Do you have like let's say that you have a big project today you got to go work on. Do you have a creative space that you go to? I know we have offices, but what are the structures you have in place to help the creative process in your life?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think this goes back to how everybody is wired differently. One thing we say a lot is that, what we do, how we express what we're trying to create, whether that's how I lead worship on the weekends, how I do music, a project that we create. We want to create from an overflow.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to how Tucker was saying, like, when we were being filled, when we were finding avenues and areas to inspire us, then we're going to create better. We just are.
Yeah.
And I think for everybody that's different.
Yeah.
I think for some, that might mean that you need to go sit out on a mountainside and just like soak in and just be inspired by nature. For some, that might mean that you need to go find a small dimly lit room and just sit and like turn music on and just start sketching to try to, if you're trying to design a graphic project, graphic design project, just go sketch. I think for me, it's a combination and it ebbs and flows. One thing that helps me is when I clean out my backpack, or I clean up my office, because what it does is for me there's probably deeper issues to it, but it's
let's unpack those.
Enneagram are you?
I am a 1, but it's a way that I feel like I have control in this area, and the clutter that maybe I walked into this space with is now in order, and so now I have the mind space to be able to be creative.
Yeah. A cluttered space equals a cluttered mind for you?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
not me.
Not you.
I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. So
Come on.
Something that brings me life is just hanging out with people. And like if you know me, you know that I am the most people person ever.
You are.
And I think that what inspires me is just forgetting about the stuff that I'm supposed to do, or like if I have this big project, or if we're trying to write this song, or just stepping away from that and getting to spend time with people and getting to laugh and joke. It's like that is life-giving to me, and that fuels me. And just I think there's something powerful in just stepping away, and that's why people go on vacations. But even just like day to day, like walking away from something and just giving your brain a break allows me to be refilled every single day.
No, that's good. I love that. The walking away, giving yourself, because here's where I want to learn from you two today, is because when I was really young, you made me feel so old. But when I was really young, I used to want to be an artist, like an actual drawing artist. I would draw all the time, and a filmmaker.
Really?
I came to the
Was this before or after martial arts?
This is during. So I watched, because I always loved to write, I watched the Scream trilogy, the horror movies, as a middle schooler, which is weird. So I wrote my own screenplay, and I had my parents film it. Really bad story. The neighbors looking back probably wondered why they saw me chasing my mom around the neighborhood with a rubber knife.
Gosh.
So, but anyways, I came to the conclusion that I probably wouldn't be the greatest at that. But for my context, I have always loved to dream. I've always loved to ideate. I've always, when it comes to trying to craft messages or writing, like where I want to learn from you two is, what do you do to break up the creativity block? Over quarantine, because I'm finally trying to finish this writing project I've been working on for a few years. I'm trying. But one of the things that has started helping me is and sometimes it can be an excuse to procrastinate, so I go back and forth in my mind on that. But about every hour, if I'm working on it, I'll go just take a walk. Yeah. And sometimes taking a walk, or even, I love to listen to music as I run, but sometimes if I can make myself, as torturous as it feels at first, to do a run, but without any music, stuff will come to my mind, and the block will be destroyed. But for you two, what do you do when you have how do ideas come to you? I know you mentioned like some of the rhythms you've put in place, but where does the greatest inspiration come from for you, and what do you do when you're just like, man, I've been sitting here staring at this screen, because I've had those moments lately where I'm staring at a screen for 3 hours and I just want to throw it against the door.
Yeah.
I think a couple thoughts come to mind. One of my favorite authors is Seth Godin, and he says throughout all of his books to ship your work, ship it, like send it, meaning finish it. Okay, and so I think back to you asked what my Enneagram number was. I'm a 1, and so with that part of that, and I think all of us have different tendencies across different Enneagram numbers, but with an Enneagram 1, there's a perfectionism part of that, and for me, I could sit and rework a song, rework a graphic for hours, for days. I mean, for months, and one of the greatest advice that anybody's ever given me to get out of that funk is just to finish it. Finish it and write something new. So like, and I know that there's still those thoughts of, okay, but I don't know how to finish that part. Well, just finish it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Finish the chapter that you're writing, move on, start another chapter, and then what could happen is you could get back and you're like, oh, that, okay.
Yeah.
Because what that is, you're getting away. Kind of like Tucker was saying, you're getting away,
right?
And I think that's for any type of art. If you could just finish something, like you're gonna have the opportunity to do something else. Yeah. So if you're writing a song and you're just not 100% happy with it, we'll finish it and write a new one.
Yeah,
because it's gonna be better.
So sometimes I need to take a walk, and other times I just need to do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a very like. Not harsh, but just upfront, blunt. Like, we'll just finish it, But
so I want to read this. One of the things I read over the summer that people have always told me I should read is this book called The War of Art. Not The Art of War, but this is a play on it by Stephen Pressfield, and it's all about, for anybody in any craft. He has this thing called resistance. The resistance takes on many forms to distract us and keep us from producing. I want to read this to you. One day he said, someone once asked Somersault Maugham, whoever that is, if he wrote on a schedule or only when struck by inspiration. He put, I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. He put, that's a pro. In terms of resistance, he was saying, I despise resistance. I will not let it faze me. I will sit down and do my work. And then I love this. He said, Maugham reckoned another deeper truth, that by performing the mundane physical act of sitting down and starting to work, he set in motion a mysterious but infallible sequence of events that would produce inspiration, as surely as if the goddess had synchronized her watch with his.
I think that's huge, because I think what you're doing is you're putting practices into place to do work. Because I think, again, I feel like there's a lot of different misnomers for being creative. One of them is like it all comes just from inspiration, and you wake up and you have this picture of what you're going to create. Or you have this melody in your head. Now, it can happen like that, but let's talk about the practices to actually capture those ideas, right?
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I do is if I have an idea, I write it down.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I'll forget it,
right.
And so I just have a running list, a notebook of like, it's back to when we really begun, like, what does it look like to actually write songs that come out of this place? It's, I just pull up my notebook that have whether it's a line that came to me that I just wrote down, or ooh, that was a really good psalm. I bet we could do something from that. If I'm not creating a system to allow myself to capture ideas, to allow myself to be creative, then I'm gonna really miss out on a lot of really good quality work, because it's little ideas is what you need to start. So I think
that's good.
We talked about how like practices. I think also just like set a routine. Like when are you gonna write your book? What day a week? What time? When are we gonna write songs? And what day? What time?
Yeah.
What's our goal?
We could play a game where we could go through the voice memos on my phone, because I'll be driving, I'll get a stoplight, and I'll have this idea, and I'll be like, "You are the treasure." Okay, that's good.
I love it. So 3 things I'm hearing already. Number 1, build some rhythms when you do need to escape. There's this quote I love by Mark Batterson. He says, "A change of place plus a change of pace equals a change of perspective." That sometimes you need to get outside somewhere different, slow down, whatever it looks like, switch things up, and sometimes that'll break. But then, two, there needs to be a structure to it. One of the things he said in here that hurt my feelings, he said, an amateur works at their art when they feel like it. A pro shows up every day.
Yeah.
And the
That's
third
huge.
thing,
And that's true.
and you have to. And there's got to be a pressure for you guys. Because,
there's a huge pressure.
I mean, people probably look from the outside and they're like, oh my gosh, that graphic was awesome. That song's amazing. You get to write and create. But like I think you hinted this earlier on in the conversation but every day when you're getting paid to do that and you got to produce day in and day out when you feel like it, when you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Like, what's that pressure like? And
Yeah, okay, just think about what you love to do. Like that just fills your cup, that you just, something that is, and on the weekends, it's like, okay, I'm going to go do this because I love doing that. Now think about, you have to do that all the time really well so that you can have money to buy food. That's really weird, and and there's a lot of people who, I think of all the healthcare workers right now, right? That's something that they love to do. They love to be, they love to take care of people. They love to be, be in the medical field and use their God-given gifts and abilities.
Yeah.
But think of the pressure that they have right now. It's like, okay, this is what I went to school for. This is what I've loved. And now how do I do this in this crazy time?
Yeah.
And I know that's a really big leap, a really big example, but I think trying to connect that just because we get to come to work and do creative work, it's not always just rainbows and roses and just, it's how can we take part of who we are, work within the box that we've been given here at X Church, and communicate effectively and well. And
no, that's good. And also there's got to be there's also got to be an emotional fortitude, I'm sure. We were talking with one of the other creatives on the team, Hannah, and she's, we're talking about this, the relationship between creativity and identity, and even insecurity.
Yeah.
Like, Tucker, for you, what does it look like? Because there's got to be this sense, and every personality is different. Everybody's personal internal struggle is different, but it's got to be a vulnerable thing too.
Yeah.
To put out, because again, art's an extension of your soul, to put yourself out there and to say, this is me. But to really, especially if you're working on a collaborative creative team, there's got to be feedback.
Yeah.
There's got to be times when you're telling each other, hey, this misses the mark. This is great, but we need to, here's where we need to go in the direction of this. So what does that look like when you, like for you personally, identity, security, putting yourself out there with your work?
Yeah. I think that's something that you kind of have to sacrifice that, and you have to come to the realization that I'm making these graphics, but I'm not making them to show people like, look how cool Tucker is. It's like serving this purpose that's higher than yourself. I think one thing when we songwrite, it's normally like me, Pastor Trae, and Pastor Kevin, and we'll get in this room and we'll all have crazy ideas, and it's literally just, you just throw them out there like left and right. It's like, oh, what if we did this? And then someone will be like, no, it's horrible, and you're like, yeah, you're right. What about this? And it's like, yeah, that's awesome. And so it's just, if I have 72 ideas and 71 of them are terrible, but one works, awesome,
Yeah,
and I think it's just separating, like, it's just understanding that you are not, this is not your identity. Like, your art is an extension of who you are, but it's not your purpose. And God doesn't see you based on what you create. God sees you based on who he made you to be.
That's so good.
And so I think that, songwriting, that's something that it taught me a lot was, I'm going to have this crazy idea and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. And that's okay. And that doesn't make me less good at what I do.
All right. Talk to me more about the songwriting process, because I'm so excited right now because you guys, I think even during when we were still quarantined, started writing songs.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying this. Everything I've heard, I think it's 5 songs that you've written together so far.
22, but
22. Okay. 22. 5 that I've gotten to hear, and they're all incredible.
Yeah.
And,
I said yeah.
You said yeah. He knows.
No.
Tucker, I love you. So, but you guys started doing them like in staff rallies and slowly, and just working on and perfecting them. Then it was like 3 weeks ago, for the first time, you debuted one of the songs here on a Sunday morning live. and the chills. I mean, it exploded. Like, you could feel this was something written for this house, this church. I mean, people singing it back from the first time you did it. And it's got to be so rewarding because, like you said, the purpose, and maybe that's a great connection to tie in, is the relationship between purpose and identity. That when your art has a greater purpose, you're able to sacrifice the insecurity because it's not about you. It's an extension of who you are, but it's not for you.
Yeah.
And that purpose maybe helps liberate you from the crippling insecurity of, what if they don't like me? But no, it's not about me. It's what God put in me that's going to actually impact someone else. And nothing. And this is the other thing I think is so powerful about art and creativity. Nothing moves the heart like art.
Yeah.
That rhymes, and I hate that it rhymed. I actually hate that rhymed because it made. But I can say, "I love you. Your eyes are blue."
That rhymes also.
But if someone crafts that into a melody,
You want me to do it right now?
do it.
No.
I bet you could do it. Put it on Facebook Live. You want to hear Tucker? I bet you could. But you know what I mean? Like, when you put story or melody or song or art to words, that, I think C.S. Lewis talks about, that is the ultimate expression of the human language of the human soul. Is when you can put art to something. And so for you to be able to do, so what's that songwriting process looked like? And any sneak peeks coming soon?
Well, unlike Pastor Trae, I'm not an incredible songwriter. Pastor Trae is really good at songwriting. And I was someone, I've been singing for forever. I've been leading worship for a long time. And I remember I would just always tell people, like, I don't songwrite. It's just not my thing. And back to the Enneagram, like, I'm a 7. So I'm really good at doing stuff when it's really fun. When we first start songwriting, we'll get, like, this awesome chorus. And I'm, like, so pumped up. And then it's, like, 20 minutes later.
It's real mad.
And he'll, like, Trae will just look at me and he'll be like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not fun anymore." And so that was my biggest problem, is I would start all this stuff and I would never finish it. I would have, like, an awesome chorus and then not finish it. And what good is a 20-second song? It's no good. And so I think getting to work with Pastor Trae and Pastor Kevin, they're two people that, they'll start something and they'll finish it. And so that pushes me to, like, get going and actually finish something. And so during quarantine, I remember I was on a Zoom call with Kevin and we just wrote this song, and I don't know if it was just that middle point of quarantine where everything just kind of sucked, and I just felt like I want to try something different. Like, I actually want to try to write a song, and so I got on a Zoom call and we wrote this song, and it was all right, but it was just getting into that rhythm of every Thursday we would write a song from 9 until lunchtime, and we wouldn't finish until we had completed the entire song. And like he said, he would be like, if we hate it, okay, but if we love it, awesome. And I remember the song you're talking about that we just did is called Found. And we have a video of the first time we sang it together, and it was like us and Susanna, one of the worship leaders here, came. And when we wrote that song, we just started singing it and we finished it. And in the video, all of us just kind of looked at each other and we were like, "Oh, that was so awesome." And, like, it was like the room just shifted. Like, we could tell even in the River Valley Mall. We're in this auditorium with none of the lights on. We're just sitting there and singing, and you could already tell, like, the Spirit of God is going to take this song and do something with it. And so then when we did it in a room, of this size and with all these people singing the same song, it's like, holy cow, it was like something shifted.
Well, even the first recorded version that you guys captured, I think it was from that Sunday, and one Thursday we all walked in here and just you hit play, and it was just chills. But I think what you hit at something really, really important is because I think you were hinting at the sucky starts. I heard Stephen Furtick say one time, and a lot of people would say he's one of the greatest communicators in the world. He said every time he starts on a sermon, in the first few minutes, after the first couple hours, he's like, "This sucks."
Yeah.
And it's that, I think is what we're getting at. It's that whole thing of, does inspiration come down from the sky, or is it more like digging gold out of the dirt until it comes?
Yeah.
I would totally say it weights heavier on the latter. That it's writing a song, you're trying to catch something.
Yeah.
And so you gotta chase it for a long time. And I'd say that for any type of art is like, and that takes from repetition. It's repetition and, like, doing the work. And I think, yes, inspiration will come. I think, as we as we try out different songs that we've written on the weekends, right? As we try them out here, there's going to be some that land really well and some that aren't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could tell you why they do or why they don't. I think probably part of it could be maybe this song is more inspired.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the structures of both songs are good.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe one of them just has more inspiration from from what we get to do as from the message that we're trying to communicate. And so, I think.
Would this be a good analogy of running? Like when you think about digging something out of dirt, and then you think about catching inspiration from the sky. Like I think of, not that I'm a big runner, but anytime I start to run, I hate running. But I make myself put one foot in front of the other. But if you run long enough, there is that moment usually where things shift.
Is there?
I feel like, and you get like a runner's high, and then it's almost like you're being carried away. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, something now came. I did the work, and then something came.
I feel like that's with anything worthwhile, right? There's gonna be moments of incredible joy.
Yeah.
There's gonna be moments of incredible like, oh, this is hard, like but you get to the other side and it's like, I mean, goofy example. We built a treehouse this summer, right? We had this, Jessica had this great. I think I was mowing the lawn or something, and I got done, and all three of my boys came up and they had drawings of what they wanted a treehouse to be. I'm like, oh, we're doing a treehouse this weekend, huh? And so they had all these plans, and so it was exciting. It was fun. We went and bought the stuff. We got home, and it was really hard. It was like, wait, I had to dig 3 holes of like 4 feet deep right by a tree where there's all these tree roots, and I hope I don't hit a gas line. Like, I have to lift these huge pieces of wood up and try to nail them into the tree with just me and Jessica. It's like
You
what
really
are we
worked on it for a
doing?
while, too.
I know. What are we doing? But then it's like you get to the other side of it.
Yeah.
And it's like you start with that really fun idea. Hey, here's our foundation.
That's the fun part.
That's the fun part. And I think a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas. Are you pushing through that idea, and are you actually digging, and are you actually running, and actually trying to create and craft something from that idea? And I think that's where being a creative can happen in any facet of life.
Yeah.
Because I think there's an unsatisfaction that comes with an unfinished idea. So are you finishing the idea that maybe has been inspired by that God has given you, and so are you going to sit and not finish something and then just always play that, man, I wish I did this? Or are you going to do the work and you're going to finish it?
So good.
And so
I think that before I started working at the church and before I started doing this for a living, it was like I just thought it was all fun. Thought it was just, we'll just sit down and we'll just have this beautiful, the Holy Spirit will just speak into the room. We'll have the song done in 10 minutes. And it's like,
the Holy Spirit will write it.
It's not like that. Like, it really isn't. And I mean, it's me starting, it was my first job to be a creative, and it was in the middle of a pandemic, so I was locked up at home. I had just gone out of college, and it was like, I remember thinking in this moment, like, what did I just sign up for? But it's cool to see God honor the stuff that's not fun, and it's not glamorous at all. It's, getting a graphic done for a blood drive that you forgot about. It's like, it's that kind of stuff.
Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, speaking, you mentioned a 4-letter word a few minutes ago that I just think is going to be a cuss word in future generations. You mentioned Zoom.
I was like, what did I just say?
You know what you said. And you're talking about the hard times. I think it would be so worth it just for a few moments. What was it like to be forced to create when the world shut down?
Horrible.
Because
No.
and every church handled it differently, and we don't pass judgment on different. I mean, some churches it really was, hey, let's hunker down until the world starts again. And every context has their own philosophy. But I know for us, that wasn't us.
Yeah.
It was things got busier, and we were forced. The box we were in forced us to innovate. And I'm just curious for you guys, practically, emotionally, what was that like?
Yeah. I think for me, I'm a huge people person, like I said earlier. So I spend a lot of time on FaceTime. I would FaceTime Trae during the day, like, what are you doing? But yeah, it was the parts of life that give me the most joy were kind of taken away. Like I just had to be at home and not be with people. And so that was tough. And that, like I said earlier, that's something that spurs my creativity. So I had to get creative with how I get creative. And spending a lot of time in the Word and just holding on to that hope was what really got me through. But I think practically it was Zoom. It was FaceTime and starting new things like songwriting. But I mean, I think we talked about this. We had a creative break-off thing on Monday, and we were just talking about how our job is to shift. We have to always be ready to pivot as like how we're going to bring hope to people. You know, it's like a lot of what we do is for the weekend experience. But then it was like when quarantine hit, it was like we don't have a weekend experience. Like people aren't going to fill this building. So it's like, how do we pivot? How do we still preach hope and show people that are scrolling on Instagram with all this new stuff? Like, how do we give them hope? And so I think that for us, it's like we just have to be willing to pivot, and we have to be okay that we're not going to have this weekend experience where all these people are going to come and we're going to feel the Holy Spirit in the room. Like, you just have to let go of that and know that God is going to use our creativity in different ways.
That's good.
I think innovation happens when you have like incredible limitations. You know, there's a lot of people who have written about that, spoken about that. You know, and I think there were limitations put on us that we really easily could have been like, okay, let's just make do. And for us, like, like you said, a lot of churches, they took different paths, and it's every church had to make a decision based on like what is best for their people, what is best for their community. And for us, we really believed that what was best is like we're gonna take what we have been doing and we're gonna make those shifts. We're gonna make those adjustments. And it wasn't perfect, but oh my gosh, did we learn so much? And I think look at the process of being in quarantine and figuring out how to produce excellent online experiences, and then moving into a new building where we now have the ability to do online experiences live a lot better than before. And I think one part I'm gonna back up a little bit. One part about our creative team that is so vital is the conversations that we're able to have together about our projects. We are so much better when we do something together. We are so much better when it's not just our idea, when it's not just our project. So it's like if this team, if graphic designer or a videographer, or they have their project, we really do everything we can to create those feedback loops. So back in quarantine, it's like, how are we going to do this? Because I mean, you can kind of do feedback stuff through Zoom, but then you've got the reality of I moved in the middle, and my internet, my new house was terrible. So we would be on a Zoom call, and I'd be like really like trying to dive in onto something, and it'd be frozen, and be like, well,
if I never Zoom again, I'm just gonna be so happy.
But I think it's okay. Well, how do you have those conversations of, hey, this is what I see in this project, and what I love about this team, and I think a lot of it came from the pivot that we had to make, is we had to be flexible. We learned a lot about what it meant to like let go of a project and like, okay, here's what I've done. What adjustments need to be made? What can you speak into? And this is not mine. We talked about how it's not, this is not what, a graphic we create, a video we create. Now it's being birthed from something within us. So there's that tension of like, this is part of me that I've created. Like this is part of who I am. In songwriting, it's like, hey, Tucker, I got this really great line from this really dark moment in my life. Like, I wrote it down. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, that's stupid. Like, I mean, like,
I do.
I can see that.
But it's the ability to be vulnerable. And to also, he talked about it, how not like, he's not saying that moment where I feel like God gave me this line in a dark moment was inauthentic or not real. He's not saying that my feelings aren't worth anything. He's saying that line doesn't work for the song that we're trying to make. Very practical, very black and white, and so like it's I've got to be okay with that, because you know what, we have all of these voice memos, we have all of these beginnings of a project, and we'll come back to them. We're not throwing them away. We'll come back to them. Maybe that line will work in the song that we try to do a year from now.
Going back to something you said a second ago about what came out of quarantine, and I think this is so practical for organizationally and personally for all of us, is not to put words in your mouth, but I think you would argue that the greatest birth of creativity that our church has known came out of quarantine. And I think in the church at large, I mean, when you look at, I know just for our context, you can speak to more than I, but the online experience, some of the ways we even do church, some of the ways that that we communicate, some of the ways that, I mean, some of the things, we started doing PT-15s, and there's all these things, and I just think that's really important, and even what you talked about in the dark moments of your life, that our obstacles can be the greatest opportunities for creativity.
Yeah.
That the darkest moments of our lives, as much as we don't want them and we don't want to embrace them, can actually be where we see obstacles. I would even get spiritual and say God does not see obstacles.
Yeah.
But there are 1,000 ways out, or there are 1,000 ways to redeem that, or there are 1,000 ways to actually leverage that, to leverage even pain as a platform to communicate something to somebody that could be healing and beautiful. And one thing, Trae, specifically for you that's different too, is you're not just on a creative team, you lead a creative team. So if you don't know Trae, he wears a lot of hats. You're an executive pastor. You have your hands in a lot of church leadership. You are over all the arts and what happens Sunday mornings from worship to production. And you lead a group of creatives, and that, like you said, all different personalities, all different wirings and giftings. What does that look like for a team dynamic, and even for you leading through that?
I think, gosh, I've learned, I've learned so much. Just getting to interact with people who think differently, who operate differently, who are inspired differently. And I think, I talked earlier about how I feel like a big part of my role with the creative team is to pull out what I know this group of creatives can do, to pull it out of them. And sometimes I do that better than other times, and I think I have to know how to provide criticism to where maybe somebody is not in a place where they can separate what they create from who they are. So I have to figure out how do I lead them into that direction. And that's not easy, because I mean, like, what we create is a part of who we are, and so it's really easy to you spend a lot of time on a project and someone says, it just doesn't work for me. Now some people, if that's how they receive it, that doesn't work. And some people, like, they hear that, and that's defeating, and it's like, wait, you don't think I'm good? No, that's not what I'm saying. So I think that's a big part of what I've had to learn how to do, and are continuing to learn how to do, is like, how can I best point people in the direction that I really feel like God has given me to lead the creative team of this church. And I think that's creativity is so subjective at times, most of the time. And it's walking people through that.
And how important is it how do we as individuals and even on teams actually foster and embrace a culture of feedback? That if you want to get better, I heard somebody talking one time, they said, if you think about the people that are the greatest athletes or artists or musicians, the greatest of the greats in every field of life, they all pay to be continually corrected. They have coaches who tell them what they do wrong. And I had somebody tell me one time, they said pros will pay for correction. Amateurs will make you pay if you correct them. And it's like, how do I foster, how do I maybe it goes back to security and purpose. Am I secure enough in who I am, and is my purpose bigger enough than who I am? And am I passionate enough to continually get better for the rest of my life, to where I actually see feedback as a friend?
And it's pride too, right? It's I think a big part of it, that's what we've talked about as a creative team, even Monday, is like, what part of our pride gets in the way of creating a better product. And but then here at a church, like, there's the other component that what we do is very spiritual. And I think if you're not working in a church, I would also say what you do can be very spiritual. And so, but I think there is there's a practical side of, like, we're creating content. There's the emotional side of we're laying bare who we are through the content we create, and there's the spiritual side of, like, we're trying to share the message of hope through what we create. And those three dynamics are really interesting to balance. And I don't know. I mean, from your perspective, like, trying to navigate as a creative team. What have you seen as worked as far as feedback goes? I know we're almost out of time, but what?
I think it's just what you said about security. It's just like knowing that, if I make a graphic, if I present something to Trae and he's like, it's just not there yet. Yeah. It's like, that is not an attack on who I am. And I feel like in general, like if you're a nurse, if you're just a mom, like if something doesn't work, like you have to have this security in who you are to know, I'm not a bad mom. I'm not a bad dad. I'm not a bad creator. It's like, that just didn't work this time. Yeah. I think when I took voice lessons in college, I'd been singing all my life, and I went and started voice lessons. And when you start voice lessons when you're 20, you think you're really good, and you're not. And I just remember that was the most humbling thing I've ever done, because I would get in there and I would work so hard on this dumb German song, and I would sing it, and he'd be like, "Nope," and you're like, "Okay."
And we're gonna wrap up in a minute. But I love, like, you talk about the voice lessons. I heard Mariah McManus, who leads worship at MSC. She was talking about, albums all over the world, and she got albums not just in the Christian world, but in the secular. And she still to this day invests in herself and makes herself take voice lessons. But
it's because she's a pro. It's because she's a pro, and she's realized that I can always get better.
And I don't know everything.
But what happens? Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say. I think it's important for us to all view it that way.
Yeah.
Because if not, the things that the greatest people in the world do to get better, if I'm not secure and I really don't have a desire for greatness, I could be insulted if someone asked me to do that. And so it goes back to passion, purpose, and security. 2 wrap-up questions. Number 1, the average person that's listening, artist or non-artist in the classical sense, what resources, books, podcasts, what would you suggest? What's a place to start if they're like, okay, I need to fuel this, I need to get inspired again? Any books? Any? I know we're talking about the Artisan. Is it the Artisan Soul?
Yeah, by McManus. Yeah. I think you gotta figure out what fills you, what fuels you, right? Right now, at the beginning of this year, it's funny. Me and Jessica are like, we said a lot of things that 2020 was going to be for us. One of them was to travel.
And, man, what a cosmic joke.
Yeah. But another one was like, hey, we're going to read more than we ever have before. We're going to read books. Yeah. And I love to read, and I think what has helped that is I've found what I love to read.
Yeah.
I haven't read what other people necessarily have said. Oh, you should, I've listened to other people's advice, but then I would almost feel like I don't like that. Like, and then I'd feel like, oh, am I just off? Am I wrong? Yeah. So you got to find what fuels you. Whether that's fiction. I think sometimes fiction for me, I'll read. Probably half the books I've read this year are fiction, and for me, that's an escape. That's that. That's almost just a restful thing. Nonfiction stuff. That's inspiring, and it makes me think, and it makes me stay up at night because I'm thinking, oh, I could take that practice and I could implement that. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that, and I just think it's, the Enneagram helped me a lot, just figuring out who you are and, what tendencies you have and correcting that. And I really do think it all goes back to just security in who you are and figuring out yourself and who God has created you to be. And, God didn't create me to be this type A, super diligent, organized like Trae. That's how God created Trae. God created me to like crack jokes and be fun and be funny. And I think that once you realize that, you can best utilize yourself and your gifts and your abilities.
Yeah.
I think the good thing about that is you find that I think with our creative team, we have a chemistry between all of us that is working really well.
That's good.
And it's because we've kind of shifted away from being prideful and have shifted more toward, okay, you have his cutting up and joking complements my straight lace, like, no, let's just do the job. And so and I need that, and I think that's what we found as a team. There's gifts that other people provide that fill in the gaps of maybe.
And we're always going to create better together, always.
And speaking of the Enneagram, this could be a topic for a future podcast. Is the relationship between the level of your creativity and the level of your emotional health. Because I know, at least for me, when I'm in like inner turmoil and angst, I do not feel freed up to. When I'm defensive or insecure, I heard someone once told me, they said, a spirit of self-preservation will never give birth to something new.
Yeah.
And when I'm in a like fearful mode or defensive posture, I never create beautiful things because I'm like this. And so that could be creativity part 2. Last wrap-up question though. I want to give a few shameless plugs because I know I'm biased, but I am just what our creative team has produced is the quantity and the quality is mind-boggling. It just honestly is, and you spoke to it. But the health and the joy, like you hear the laughter up from the Creative Loft every day, and the camaraderie, but just what is being produced, it's unreal. And so I want to give a shameless plug. Kevin, who is usually hosting, he preached this week. And, you know, we don't ever get super spiritual. We're pretty intentional to keep this a really accessible space to anybody, regardless of where they're at in faith and life. But some of the things we've been processing through this podcast and just grief and loss and disappointment, he picked up on those themes and expounded on them in a really profound and really meaningful way this Sunday. And so I would just say, if you get time, you get bored, go to thex.church and watch Kevin's message because it was amazing. But for you guys, how can people access? I don't know if there are dates for upcoming album drops. I know you're constantly creating really incredible clothes merch. How can people?
I mean, I think, the content that comes from the creative team is pretty incredible, whether it's merchandise because we're proud of what we do here as a church, and we believe that, we've got a great message to share. And so we create cool stuff so that people can help us share it, know? And so I think, for merchandise, the easiest way probably is follow the X_church on Instagram. Find our shop link in the profile, and you can see some of that. As far as music, we're hard at work at what's our next step. We have some songs that we think are really going to work and land well. And the next step is really refining some of the recordings that we've been working on. But I don't know if we have a set date on it yet.
Do we?
No, not yet.
No, but if you follow us on Instagram,
you'll find
Instagram, Facebook, we try to keep like all the content we create out there and accessible. And when we get a date, when we release the date that we already have, we'll put it out there.
So maybe we can wrap this up by simply this: whoever you are, wherever you're listening from or watching, you are creative. And I believe my faith worldview would tell me that you're creative because you were made in the image of the most creative being in the universe. And, it's interesting. I don't know how familiar you are with Scripture, but a lot of times we use phrases like the Holy Spirit, God anointed someone. And usually the following part of that sentence is to preach or to sing. But in Genesis, the first time that we see the Spirit anoint someone to do something, it was actually to create. I think they were a metal worker. Was it Turbine, a metal worker in Genesis? And whatever you do, whether you're an accountant or a teacher or an athlete or a stay-at-home mom, you are anointed to create. And for me personally, one of the struggles I feel like when I lock myself away in isolation to write, not only is there a lot of emotional turmoil, but sometimes it can actually feel selfish.
Yeah.
And I attended a Donald Miller writing seminar over the summer, and he argued, and this was a shifter for me, he said, it's selfish for you to hoard what's inside you and not share it with the world. And I would just say, whoever's listening, whoever's watching, you may not have ever felt this way, but there is something in you that the world needs.
That's good.
And for you to tap into what that is, the greater meaning behind it that maybe you're still wrestling with, but to give yourself permission to create, to get creative, because whether you've ever thought about it this way or not, the world needs what's inside of you.
Exactly.
And there's only one of you. God's a really detailed and thorough and individualistic creator. And he didn't make two of you, and he only made one of you. And so we need you to be you.
Yeah.
And we need every creative expression that's in you. The world needs it. And I love you guys so much and appreciate you, look up to you. This place is beautiful. This place is inspiring. The worship that comes out is inspiring. The social media, which is I look at it as a window into what God's doing here, is inspiring. Not just because of YouTube, but all the creative team that will listen to this. Our church, I know my life, I'm just so thankful and inspired by you. So thank you for what you do. Thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks for having us today.
And hey, for anybody watching, once again, share this with someone that you think it will encourage. As always, rate, review, like, subscribe, send us an email, podcast@thex.church. But until next week, Thanksgiving week is crazy. We're going to have a Thanksgiving special for you. But thanks again for joining. And this is a fun family we're building.